Your journey can only begin when the self-doubts stop. The first step is harnessing your bravery within. Believing in you is your host, John Williams. Hello and good day to you all. My name is Sean, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to another Hodge episode of Bravery Within. I just wanted to say thank you so much for always tuning in. You guys are making these podcasts amazingly popular, and people are requesting more and more of them, and I can't thank you enough for that. Starting this out here and stuff here, today's episode, I'm going to be honest with you, is not an easy one. There's going to be a lot of probably heartbreak in this one, but I want to tell you one because I know most everything that I do is very upbeat and very personable. This one here really hits close to home. And the reason that it hits so close to home is because I've had a couple friends that have lost somebody close to them, or they've known somebody that was close to them, to either, just life taking them or by suicide. And I thought there's a lot of folks out there that struggle from day to day and struggle on such a deep level, and they just don't see that there's any end to it. They don't think that there's any way around it. We all know that death is gonna come for us all at some point, but the trick is trying to live during that time. So what I wanted to do was reach out to my friends that have had a personal loss. I've had personal losses. I know you guys have had personal losses out there too. So what I wanted to do today was to try to do an episode of something that's going to give you a little bit of hope. I know there's a lot of, especially younger folks and stuff there, they haven't went through a lot of tragedy. They haven't went through losing somebody super close most of the time. I was lucky that it wasn't until my 30s before I lost somebody close to me. So I always thought I was, Superman and untouchable. And I thought, okay, well, this is doing fantastic. Granted, I went to a couple of funerals and stuff there, but they weren't really, really close to me. So Hodgepodge episode number 7, the loss of a loved one. That's what this one's all about today. I will do my best to try to keep it upbeat and stuff, but this is very, very heavy stuff that we're dealing with here. So the reason I'm doing this episode is I wanted to hope to give, if you're struggling, if you're out there, if you just lost somebody or you have lost somebody in your past, I'm hoping that this episode here will give you a little bit of strength to pull through and keep on going. That's all I can hope for. Maybe there's some tricks in here that I've done here that will help you get through. That's all I can hope for in this one here. So death is not easy to talk about. A lot of us will kind of cringe away from it and not talk about it and just pretend it doesn't exist. But unfortunately, it does. So basically, I'm going to start it out right away and just say everything is born, lives, and dies. That is the very nature of our mortal existence. No matter what you do, no matter how you try to duck it, no matter, like me, I'm doing my weight loss journey, and I know I've extended my life by being better and things there, but ultimately when it's your time to go, it's your time to go, and when you get called home, you get called home. But what I wanted to try to do is try to help some folks out there because, like I said, I have one friend that just lost a sister. I have another friend where she knows of a kid, I believe he was 15, committed suicide. It was so heartbreaking. And over my lifetime and stuff there, I've lost probably 4 friends to suicide. It's very terrifying, and which I'll go into a little bit later because there's 2 sections to this whole podcast. Is I also tried committing suicide when I was young, but I'll get to that a little bit later and stuff. So I know what you're going through, and I know what I'm talking about on this one here. So the first part of it is just going to be when we lose a good friend, a parent, a relative, a fur baby, anything like that there, when we lose them to natural causes or something else. It hurts. I thought I was prepared for going through trauma, going through all these headaches, trying to be the best person I can. But man, you can prepare for it all you want, and it is just going to sneak up and it's going to get you. So all I can say is when you get to that point, it's going to take some time. When I was going through, especially when I lost my mom 5 years ago, it was a tough time. She was my cheerleader. She was my rock. She was the most important person to me, besides my son, of course. And she was, basically my biggest cheerleader with my all my books and being an author, and she wanted to know all about it. And she was so integrated into Alex's life, and she was everything to us. I mean, the holidays were because of her, and we'd go over there on weekends because of her. And she was cut from a different cloth. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ladies and stuff there, and there are gentlemen out there and stuff there from that era. When you're talking baby boomers and stuff, they're amazing. They know how to have a home. I'm not saying everyone does, but for the vast majority of them, those ladies, they're not made anymore. They're amazingly tough. They're for 1 minute they can stand there defending you, helping you out and everything else, being strong for you, and the next minute they can be so soft and warm, and it's like a stick that can't be broke. They're unbelievably strong. They're amazing people. My mom was one of those. I have another friend. Her name is Chris. She is basically the same age and everything else there. I feel fortunate to have her in my life. I don't have many people like that there, and I don't let many people close to me. But she's incredible. She's always helping everybody. She goes to church. Anytime that I needed something, she was there. When I had my business, she'd come down to visit, and we would talk. She's always there for her grandkids, for her own kids. She's traveled great distances to take care of them. She's an incredible lady. She's always got a smile on her face. She's always got a hug for you. Those type of ladies, they don't make them anymore, I'll be honest. And it's really, really sad to lose that kind of a generation and that kind of person. But I just consider myself extremely lucky to have her in my life. That's one thing that you're going to want to, as you get older, and I know, because I was told the same thing as I was growing up. Cherish the people, cherish the time that you have together, because it's not going to come again. Once it's gone, it's gone. And I said, yeah, whatever, move on. Because I'm 17, I know everything, and nothing's going to happen to me. The thing that caught me off guard was when my mom passed away 5 years ago. I mean, we spent so much time together. We would go to restaurants together. We would spend time together. We would go to farmers markets. I'd go over there and help around the house. Anything that I could do to spend time with her. She loved all my fur babies, which they absolutely adored her. And the worst part of it was the one Saturday, I spent most of the Saturday there with her. And I got the phone call Monday morning saying that she was scooping snow off the deck and passed away right there. There was no warning. There was nothing, no lead time, no bracing for impact, nothing. That hit me hard. And I have to admit there that I'm not over it yet. And I'm not sure that I'll ever fully be over it yet. But I keep trying to be strong for everybody else and processing my grief. As grief comes in waves. It's kind of like an ocean. In the beginning, it feels like you're drowning, I'll be honest, and it took me a long time before I finally felt like I wasn't drowning. I tried to move on, and I couldn't. It took quite a while. I mean, I stayed strong for everybody else, but deep down inside, I was broken and hurt, and I felt, honestly, I felt like I was cheated. I felt like, she should have had, she was only 62. She should have had more time. And it was just like, my goodness, how come I got so cheated out of life? And that's part of one of the stages of grief and stuff. And we'll go over that here in a little bit here to try to hopefully help you too. And I'm going to be kind of a broken record. You've got to take the time to love those people that are nearest and dearest to you. It doesn't matter whether, if they have fur on them or if they don't. Take the time. I hear so many times anymore that people will say, well, I just don't have time to come over and see you this weekend, mom or dad or sister or brother or whatever it is. And it's just like, you need to make the time. I know that I'm not the best at it myself either, but it's kind of, you gotta, because honestly, our time on this earth is finite. You can't beg, borrow, or steal for any more time. You can't can't do anything. I mean, whatever our time is, that's all the time we have. That's all we have. So all I can say is, try to be there. But when you do lose that loved one, you're gonna be processing so much. You are gonna be going through so much. It's and one thing that I had a friend and stuff there that told me that lost his sister and stuff there, that it hadn't hit him yet. He had just found out, and I said it doesn't. It takes time before it actually registers in your mind, before you can start understanding the loss. And he didn't know quite. I don't think he knew what I meant at the time there, but he was numb. It was the same thing that I was feeling when I lost my mom. I was numb. You could have said anything to me, nothing would have made sense, and it would be like, whatever. I don't have time for you right now. I'm going through this trauma. So, trying to be there for somebody, you have to let them grieve at their own pace. I couldn't tell you how many times I was flat out told I needed to just suck it up and move on after my mom's death. And it was like, no, you have no right to tell me. These are my feelings. This is my way of healing. And I don't tell you how to feel. I don't tell you who to love. So that's just the way it is. And you shouldn't be telling me how to do that. You have to take all the time necessary to get through the steps. And yes, you have to be really, really careful with some of this, with the 5 stages of grief, which we'll go over in a minute. But you can get stuck so easy in either denial or the depression of it all. And I did for a little bit, and I think everybody does in the beginning, because it is so traumatic. It's like your brain can't wrap its head around, okay, what am I going through? What is this? So take your time when you go through it. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Even with moving on 5 years later and stuff there with the loss of my mom, there's a saying that I was told many times, and it was, time heals all wounds. And I got to be honest out there, and I'm not negative, but that line is full of poo. I just don't agree with it. It's not something that I'll ever believe in. At best, that wound will scab over. Maybe that works with some people that you're not quite so close with, somebody that you love so deep and dearly. Maybe that adage there and stuff there, maybe that works at that point, but it has never worked for me, because when I care about somebody and I love somebody, I'm all in. I'm 100%. I don't do anything halfway in that area. So it was like somebody had just ripped my heart out and threw it away. And it may be different for you, but I can't tell everybody enough there that take the time necessary to grieve. Don't try to rush it. Don't try to, take time away from work. Do whatever you have to. Like me, I would go in the hills and I would find someplace and I'd isolate myself. It probably wasn't the best thing to do, but that was my way of processing everything that I'm going through. And I'll be honest, it took 3 or 4 years for me to process it and work through it. I make it a habit to make sure that in spring and fall I go and visit her at the graveyard stuff. I check out the headstone, make sure it's all cleaned up, make sure the lights work. I bring new flowers down, and just to let her know that she isn't forgotten. I think that's something that you need to do. You need to pay respect to the past, and it's hard. I mean, it's not easy for me. I mean, there's times that, there's tears in my eyes as I go down there. There's tears in my eyes when I go back. It's really, really difficult to try to get through. I'm not going to lie. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I know that Mom deserves it. She deserves that respect. So I go down twice a year. I go down in the spring, because it's after winter and stuff there to make sure everything's okay and the flowers held up and the lights held up. Then I go down in the fall to make sure everything's okay through the summer, because we get pretty crazy weather up here. We get hail and stuff, so if things are broken, then I'll fix them so it always looks nice and clean off the headstone again. But just, to me, it's a respect thing, and you need to. I know some people will never do it. That's fine. That's completely up to you. I'm not telling you what to do, how to do it, or anything there. I'm just telling you what I do to try to process the grief of the loss of my mom. It just... And it probably didn't set in, honestly, until we had later to rest. I took a week off, and then I went back to work. And I had a really, really cruddy second or third day back because I was trying to play catch up from being gone for a week and get my work caught up. And my team needed me and had a bunch of questions. And when I got there at the end of, I think it was the end of the second day, it was a Tuesday. And when I got back home, I was, basically driving home and stuff and everything else. And it was just horrible. And so I thought, okay, well, you know what? I can call my mom and talk to her for a few minutes. She was always good for some advice or just listening. Sometimes that's all you need is just somebody to listen. And I looked down, pulled up her contact in my phone, and I went to hit send, and I couldn't. It was like nobody's gonna pick up the phone. And that's when I really, really lost it. On the way home, I had to pull over. I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled over in the parking lot and I just let it all out. I'm sure somebody thought I was being killed in the parking lot if they walked by and saw. But it was at that moment that I had realized that she was gone and she's never coming back. So it took a lot to get through, to figure it all out. And like I said, it comes in waves. It's kind of weird. A smell can trigger it. Can trigger the depression and bring everything right back again. A song, like one of her favorite songs, would come on my Pandora playlist, and it was just like, oh my God, here we go again. In the beginning, it's just when it hits. There's no controlling it, and just try not to. All I can say is allow yourself to grieve. That's how you start the healing process. But like I said, I was stubborn, and it took me 3 or 4 years to process it all. Because I just in the beginning it was just denial. I mean, and I lived in denial for a while. I knew she was gone, but it was just kind of like, okay, well, someday I'll be able to talk to her again, and someday I will be able to talk to her again because I will be able to go back and see her. But when you're processing, it's a whole different ballgame. It's hurt like you've never ever went through before. So one thing that I wanted to talk to you about today and stuff there was the 5 stages of grief, and I knew of them, but I didn't know deep into them and stuff. And I wish I kind of would have known this. It might have helped a little bit trying to get through. But the first step, and granted, now take into account these can be done in any order, but typically the first step is denial and isolation. When we lose somebody or something important to us, it's natural to reject the idea that it could be true. In turn, we may isolate ourselves to avoid reminders of the truth. Others who wish to comfort us may only make the hurt more while they're trying to come to terms with the loss. And that is so very, very true. Everybody would constantly ask me, how are you doing? They would go out of their way to talk to me and stuff there. And it got to a point where it's just like, would you just leave me alone? Stop bringing it up, because every time you brought it up, it like rips the scab off of the wound again. It just hurt. And it's like, would you just stop? It's too much. So I just took it on the chin and just kind of, okay, yep, make everybody else happy. That's the way I've been my whole life. And I processed privately. But I lived in denial and isolation for a long time. And am I 100% over it yet? No. 5 years later, I'm still not 100% over the loss of my mom. But I figure hopefully within time, the pain has lessened. I can talk about her. Like on this one here, I didn't know if I was going to be able to talk about her on the podcast. But I wanted to. I've opened up about everything else in my life and who I am and what makes me me. So I figured this is just the next natural progression. Is I know lots of people that you go through loss, and sometimes just listening, knowing that you're not alone out there, can make all the difference in the world. To me, that helped me a little bit. The second step typically is anger. That will, and man, you can have just bouts of anger, just boom, it'll scare you sometimes. When it's no longer possible to live in denial, it's common to become frustrated and angry. We might feel like something extremely unfair has happened to us and wonder what we did to deserve it. And that is so true. That is absolutely perfect. It's anger. I lived with anger for quite a while. It was my best friend. It was kind of like a leather coat that was broken in, and it was my friend. Every time I would think about anything, I would get mad. I would just have this sudden rage that just would roll through my body. And it was just like, okay, well, I've got to start figuring out how to deal with this. But I didn't want to, because the moment that I started dealing with it, I knew that my mom was gone, and I admitted to myself that she was gone. And I wasn't ready for that yet. I wasn't ready to accept that into my life, even though it may have been 6 months later and I haven't been able to talk to her. And I know in my mind she has been laid to rest. I have been to her gravesite a couple times. I know it's there, but you still feel in, basically you go back to denial and say, okay, I can't deal with this, and I won't. So then you get angry with everybody and everything, and it's kind of a really, really bad loop that you get stuck into. The third step typically is bargaining. In this stage, we might somehow seek to change the circumstances of the situation causing our grief. For example, a religious person who loved one is dying might seek to negotiate with God to keep the person alive. Bargaining may help the grieving person cope by allowing them a sense of control in the face of helplessness. I unfortunately bargaining didn't really do anything for me. I think I kind of just blasted through this step. Mainly because I knew that there was nothing that I could do. I prayed as much as I could, stuff, to make the pain go away a little bit, just to lessen the pain if it was possible. But bargaining, I kind of hoped over. But I do know that some of my friends, they've had loved ones that, laid in bed for weeks, months, sometimes years, just waiting for that time to happen. And I can understand where bargaining would come in at that point. In some ways, I feel I was lucky because Mom was just gone. She was called home just right on the spot. It was hard to handle, and it was like taking a baseball bat to the stomach at full power. But in some ways, I feel I was lucky because I've had friends that have their parents that have laid in a bed for years, just waiting for that time to come, and the agonizing truth of it all is like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I would be strong enough to go through that, but somehow, some way you do. Number 4 is depression. In this stage, we feel the full weight of the sadness over the loss. Feeling extremely down in the wake of the loss is normal. However, it is important to be aware that clinical depression is different from grief, and they are treated differently by a mental health professional. You have to be really, really careful with this one here, because I have seen too many times, I've seen friends, I've seen family members, after the loss, they get stuck in depression and they never get out. It's just like, it's kind of like almost the last stage. And it's just like they just can't get through it. They can't cross the finish line to move on. And like I said, you have to take the time to be able to move on. You can't rush it. You can't rush grief as much as you would absolutely love to. But you can't do it. But I've seen too many, and my father was this. I mean, he got stuck in depression and never moved on. All of Mom's clothes were there. Everything was untouched. It was like a mausoleum to Mom. And he just never, you would ask him if he needed to talk. He wouldn't talk. He would keep it all locked up. And not that I'm any better, because I did the same thing. But all I can say is be so very, very careful with depression. You're going to go through it, but just be really, really careful with it and make sure that you do move on at some point, because the longer it takes to get through this one here, it almost feels like life passing you by. The world is going to keep turning no matter what. Yes, we've had a loss. Yes, it's tragic and everything there. But unfortunately, the world keeps cruising on, unfortunately. You would like it to stop, to give yourself time to heal and everything else. Unfortunately, it just doesn't do that. So just all I can say is be really, really careful with depression. It can get to you. And make sure you talk to somebody, talk to a counselor, talk to a doctor, talk to a religious official, talk to a loved one. Whatever it is, talking actually does help, as long as it's done on your terms and not somebody come up and asking, how you feeling, how you feeling, how you feeling. That will drive you just right over the edge, and it almost pushed me over the edge. I got to be honest. It's just like, okay, you got to give me time, folks, here to process all this and heal. And the final step 5, is acceptance. Eventually, the grieving person may come to terms with their loss. Accepting a loss does not necessarily mean the person is no longer grieving, and that is huge. I want you to know that. So be very, very careful with that. In fact, many grief experts say that grief can continue for a lifetime after a major loss, and coping with the loss only becomes easier over time. That's what I was trying to tell you, is I don't think, honestly, I'll ever fully get over losing my mom. She was everything to me. And I'm coming to slowly learn. It's okay. That's just a deep hurt that is never going to go away. No matter who you lose in your life, it hurts. They were part of your life, and in some ways, that person that I was the day that she passed away died with her. I'm different. I handle things different, but I always try to do everything in her honor as much as I possibly can. We have stuff at Christmas time that we do to honor her. It's just you'll find ways of processing it on your own. I can't stress you enough. Take the time necessary to process everything, to deal with everything, and don't let anybody tell you any difference. Just don't get stuck in the depression state. That I've seen too many people that have they've lost their lives. The world just moves on and they just never can move on. And I understand the loss is horrific. It's horrible. I understand that part. But depression will get a hold of you, sink its claws in, and never let you go. So just be really, really careful of that. Acceptance is huge once you finally hit that level. But like I said, it took me years for acceptance. It probably took me 4.5 years before I started to accept, okay, there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can say to bring her back, so now it's time to move on. And just because you're moving on doesn't mean that you love them any less. It doesn't mean that you're not thinking of them. It doesn't mean that you've given up on them. Don't ever think that. And I thought that in the beginning is, if I move on, then I'm a bad person. I just can't, I need to stay here and I need to continue to grieve. Unfortunately, I know my mom, and she would look at me and she would have pulled the wooden spoon out and said, now listen here, Sean, you need to move on. I'm not here anymore, but I'm always with you in spirit. And I know she is. I can feel her at times as she's walking around the house, or, I can feel my girls or whatever. So I know that someday I will get to see her. So acceptance comes at its own speed. It comes at your own speed. Just give yourself time to get to that point. Like I said, talk on your terms when you're ready to talk to people. And like me, I'm always there for anybody that needs to talk. I mean, I've always got an ear for somebody to help out, and that's why with everything that my friends are going through right now, it breaks my heart, because I just want to, wrap them up and give them a hug and say it's going to be okay. You will get through this. And I can do that, and I would do that if that's what would make them happy. But I also know that they have to process at their own speed and at their own time. So that's just give yourself time, and enjoy the people while you can. Enjoy the time that you have together, because like I said, it'll never come again. So now, unfortunately, we're going to flip the coin on this one here, and we're going to talk about another really, really rough thing, and that's suicide. That's a really, really difficult thing to do, and it's tough for me to admit, but I attempted suicide when I was 18. I fell in love with this girl, and she proposed to me, and I gave her of course, the only thing I had at the time there was my class ring, so I gave her my class ring there as, to say, okay, let's do this. I had just gotten out of 8 years of abuse and molestation, so for me to be able to trust anybody was a huge thing, and somehow it came naturally to trust her. And after we did that, we had a very special night. We just sat by the lake and just enjoyed each other's company. No, nothing naughty happened there and stuff. This is a family show. And 2 days later, after her ex-boyfriend got in an accident and almost killed himself, she basically gave me my ring back and said, we're not going to get married. She has to go back to him and take care of him. Well, needless to say, I couldn't handle it. That was, I was tired of getting rejected, and I was tired of hurting and being there for everybody else, and there's nobody there for me. So I decided, and I took my car up into the hills, shut the lights off, and basically put the foot to the floor. And I remember the speedometer before I shut the lights off at about 90 miles an hour, and I was going to take it headlong into a bridge. Well, obviously I didn't hit the bridge. Something turned, because my hands weren't on the wheel, nothing. The only thing that I had control of was the accelerator pedal, and I had it pushed to the floor. Something turned the car at the very last second, and I slid back up onto the road because I was down in the ditch heading for the bridge column. And at that point there, I sat there and I cried and just broke down, just crazy. And I realized at that point there that, okay, well, apparently I need to be here for some reason. So I went back to my old work and stuff. There was a fast food joint, and that's where, because I was working with my ex-wife at the time, but we were just friends at that point. She was still married, so I had to be really, really careful about who I talked to, because it was like, okay, well, if you say this and admit to it, then maybe what they'll do is they will lock me up in the funny farm and try to analyze me. So I was really careful. I didn't tell anybody that I attempted it. I kept it to myself, except to my ex-wife, which was my friend at the time. And from there on out there, we just got close and we moved on. But I've lost a total of 4 friends in my lifetime to suicide, and unfortunately, all 4 times, I don't know why they did it. That's the part that terrifies me the most. Is most of the time with suicide, you don't know why they did it, and all of them, there was no indication whatsoever that they were even thinking about it. They were happy. They were, you were going through high school. Let's be honest. There's ups and downs. You got all the pressures of everything. And it completely caught me off guard. It was like, okay. And in those days, they really didn't talk to us about suicide. My son, when he was going through school, he's been out of school now about 10 years, but when he was going through it, and he helped out so many kids there that were on that ledge and were ready to jump off of it, they actually talked to the kids a lot more about suicide, depression, anxiety, and all that stuff, to try to help them to understand that the world, it's horrible right now and stuff. There, what you're going through is horrible, but ending it all is not the answer. There's so many people out here that love you. Just know that. I know you're probably thinking and listening and going, there ain't nobody that loves you. There's lots of people that love you, and the loss of a unique life like yours is huge to the human race. I mean, you may not think that you can contribute much to the human race, but you do. You influence things, you influence the timeline, you influence people, you influence love. The one time that you might open the door for somebody might save somebody else's life. If you hold a door open for their vehicle, or you get something off the shelf for them, or just say hello, you'd be surprised at how far that will go and how that might save somebody. So you might, in your worst time of hurt and anger and anxiety, you might yourself there be ready to jump off the cliff. And by helping somebody else out, you helped yourself out. So I just know that looking back now, for what I know now, I wish I wouldn't have tried. I gotta be honest. It hurt. And it really hurt my mom, because my mom didn't find out till, probably 5 years later, maybe 10. It was a long time after that. It just slipped out during a conversation one day. And I'm pretty certain that I just broke her heart when I said that. So, because I never wanted to hurt my mom. I never cussed her on my mom. It was 100% respectful. And when it came out, I felt horrible. And she asked, and she had tears in her eyes and hugged me and asked why I didn't come talk to her. And at the time, I was just too broken. I mean, the girl broke my heart. I couldn't think of anything else. I was driving around in the hills all by myself. And I thought, okay, well, I'm all by myself. Why not? I'm not going to hurt anybody else. There's nobody else that's going to care. Nobody wants to be with me. So guess what? And, well, apparently somebody did, because the wheel turned at the last second, and apparently I'm here for a reason. So just know that no matter what, you're out there, and you do matter. You're unique. You're amazing. Don't let anybody tell you any different. I know there's a lot of people there that will take the time there to tear you down and beat you up and stuff there, but don't let them. You can always bounce back, find something to hang on to that will help pull you through. And one thing that I found, honestly, when I was going through, and I did it before I found this and thought about it there, you can create what's called a hope box. And this is so incredible, because I did something like this and I didn't even realize it until I was reading in further into suicide and stuff. They're trying to get some more information and to understand what I went through. And this was something that's pretty cool. And a hope box is something where you take anything like pictures, little trinkets, gifts you were given, notes, anything like that from anybody around that means the world to you. So when you start walking toward that ledge and saying, you know what, nobody cares, nobody wants to listen, anything like that, what you do is you take that hope box out and you open everything up and you let it help build you back up again and give you the strength to not take your life, to not try to move on to the next life. There's too many people here that need you, and like I said, you may not know why you're here. and most of us don't. We're learning as we go. We're learning on the fly. I mean, it's crazy. But just know that you're needed, you're wanted, and you're loved. I personally, I do everything I can to take care of people. If I hear somebody that's talking like that, I'll take the time, stop, and listen and see if there's something that I can do. Sometimes just listening to somebody that's having problems like that can end it. So there's so many. The part that gets me the most is the suicide rates are the highest between middle-aged white folks and stuff there, and actually anybody over, they said 62. And I understand as you get older, the pain gets worse. It hurts, your physical pain, not just anxiety and everything else. Your joints hurt, your muscles hurt, your arms hurt, your back hurts. Things get worse and worse, and there's only so much that modern medicine will take care of. But the part that shocked me was so many middle-aged folks that were doing. I honestly thought that it was something huge with just like the teen community, because they're going through so much. School is brutal. School is mean. It's horrible. And we all understand, don't be bullying and everything else. We understand all that stuff. But the thing that really caught me off guard is I honestly thought the younger kids, the younger generation were that way. But it wasn't. It's the middle-aged folks and then the older folks, which really kind of shocked me by diving into it. So all I can say is create a hope box. It's amazing. I actually have a whole shelf dedicated to my mom. So in those times where I feel that I can't go on anymore, what I do is I go back, I sit down on my bed and I look at that shelf, and it's gifts that I gave her, things that she gave me. It has a picture of her. It's a nice memorial to her. And that helps me get through, because there are times that I feel like sometimes I can't go on. I've had enough. My books didn't take off the way I would hope they would do. COVID took away my business, took away my home. I went so far into debt. I lost my vehicles. I lost everything except my son, thank God. And the family that I have created, they all stuck by me. And that's what helped pull me through. But to be honest, there were still times that I just felt like a failure. I mean, I was just, I don't think I was gonna ever, go and be crazy and try to end my life. But depression kicked in, and there was a couple times in the back of my head, it was saying, you know what, you've done everything. You've done everything you can. Just be finished. And I just decided, no, my family still needs me. My son still needs me. My puppy still needs me. I've got to be strong. I've got to find a way to dig deep and do this. But I know that there was a time that no matter amount of digging or anybody talking to me, it just wasn't going to get through. My mind was made up, and I tried to kill myself. And I know there's lots of folks that are out there that are that close, and they're just, step back for just a minute and take a breath. It's very, very difficult. And if worse comes to worse, there's nothing wrong. Make sure you talk to somebody. And if you need to talk to somebody, there's a suicide hotline that can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That number is 800-273-8255. You can call anytime, day or night. That's the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can call them anytime. You can also confidentially text, which I think is really cool. And that number is 741 and which is, I didn't know this is really, really neat. Our phones are now pre-dial. You can just have to dial 988 and it will take you to the suicide prevention Lifeline. Don't think because you're reaching out and asking for help that you're weak. You're not. You're stronger than you're giving yourself credit for, because if you're asking for help, that's incredible. That is a huge step, and it's very, very hard to admit that you need help. I'm one of the worst ones there and stuff. I never ask for help, but I got to be honest and stuff. There, going through this, all I wanted to do honestly was talk to somebody that understood what I was going through, and I didn't have anybody to talk to that understood what I was going through. Didn't understand the powerful emotions that were kept up inside me, and it really broke my heart. I thought I had no place to turn. Just know there's so many places that you can go now, you can talk to. Just don't think that just jumping off the cliff is the answer. That's not the answer. Basically, there's times where if I get down, I'll listen to some music that'll help pull me back. Just know there's people that love you. There's people that need you in their life. You may not feel it, but trust me, they do. There's a reason why you're here on this big blue marble that we call Earth, and don't short anybody on that, because you don't know what you're giving up. You don't know what you're missing. So talk to somebody, which can be anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. Talk to a friend. Talk to a religious official. Call the numbers. Like I said, the suicide hotline, in case you missed it the first time. That number is 800-273-8255. And don't think you're weak by calling it. Don't think that at all. It's okay to ask for help once in a while. Sometimes you just need a hand to reach out and just help you up just a little bit to get you back on your feet and get you rocking and rolling again. So don't think you're weak, because you're not. I'm so proud of you if you make that phone call. That is amazing. Know that I am personally proud of you, and I am glad that you're going to make that call and get some help. So, and if worse comes to worse, if you need those numbers again, you're welcome to get a hold of me on my Facebook page. You're welcome to get a hold of me through my emails. Whatever I can do to try to help, I will do everything in my power to try to help. Just don't think that this is the only way to go. So we all know that there's grief, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of depression, and everything else and stuff there that goes along with a loss. Just know that, if you decide to end it all, that's what you're going to put somebody else through. There's somebody out there that's going to go through all those steps and wonder, what did I do wrong? Because with all four of my friends, I wondered, what did I miss? What were the social cues that I missed? What was I not listening enough? Was I not there enough for him? Was I just not a good enough friend? And those are all questions I don't have answers to yet, and that's been 30 years ago. So it's like I'll never have answers to them until I cross over myself, and then I can ask them, what was wrong? What did I miss? I mean, what could I have done differently? But until that point, I'll never get those answers. So the only thing I can say is just be very, very careful. So I know it's a lot to process, but just think about it before you go and make that ultimate sacrifice, because there is people that love you and want to be there. So just be very, very careful with all of that. I know that normally, I try to keep them very, very upbeat and everything else, but this is one episode that it's really, really hard to keep upbeat. But just know that I'm proud of you. I know you're very, very strong. I know you're capable. I know you can handle anything that's going to come at you. Sometimes it's just easier to step back for just a minute, take a breath, and then take another run at whatever you needed to do. It's just the way life is. That's what I've had to do so many times. I mean, I've had plenty of chances there to just give up on the world, but I don't. I find a reason to keep going, and there's always a good reason to keep going. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it at the time, but trust me, it's there. So if you need help, if you need those numbers, please get a hold of me. I'll get those numbers out to you right away. But just know that, when all's said and done, just like everything else, you got this. I believe in you. I'm 100% behind you. Even when you feel that you can't go on any longer, just know that, there's help out there. There's somebody that wants to listen. There's somebody that's going to be there for you. And utilize the phone numbers. Utilize your friends. That's all I can say on that one there. Family members, they'll be there for you. If not, there's always a friend. There's always a church that can listen and help. Just don't think that ending it all is the way to do it. If you're grieving right now and stuff there because you have lost somebody, remember, please, don't get stuck in the depression, stage. Do whatever you can there to try to get through it. Give yourself time for acceptance. Give yourself time for processing. Don't let anybody tell you that you just need to get over it and move on, because it doesn't work that way. I got told that many, many times, and I'll be honest, it doesn't work. So if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email me. You can message me on the Facebook page, Sean G. Morris. The email and stuff there is SeanGMorris@gmail.com. That's SeanGMorsse@gmail.com. You're welcome to get a hold of me. If there's anything that I can do, I would be more than happy to try to help out. So that way you don't feel so alone and empty. Just know that there's always somebody there that wants you around and needs you around. So I'm gonna close out the podcast today and stuff there to say thank you for always listening. Remember, you got this. I'm proud of you. I know you're gonna do well. Just do the best that you can and stuff. That's all you can do, and just be there for everybody else, and they'll be there for you. So anybody else that's listening out there, make sure you hit like, share, comments, follow, anywhere, whatever you're on for the platform here. I appreciate it, so we can continue to help more people. That way they become more of our extended family, and they know that they've got a good support structure to come to, like what we currently have right now. So with everything being processed today, everything being said, being there talking about all this stuff, I am going to end this on a happy note, which is the dad joke of the day. So I found a pretty good one here. I tried to work pretty hard to find this one here because we were talking about very, very heavy things today in this episode. So I just wanted to end it on a very light note. So here's the dad joke of the day. Get ready to roll your eyes. What do you call a fake noodle? An impasta. I know, it's awesome. There, we'll love it there. Go ahead and let your eyes roll. I can hear it already. So thank you so very much for always listening. Thank you so much for making the podcast as big a deal as what it is. I appreciate everything you're going through there. Just know that you're loved and you're wanted. And all my love and support